Good morning, this is Larry, and I'm coming to you live from Stevie's room. Today I want to cover a more serious topic about feline epilepsy. We have two in the house. It is rare in cats, but it does occur. It is more common in dogs. And the two cases that we have are very different. Both have no underlying issues. I know if you look it up and see the medical perspective, they say that some of them have underlying health issues. That was never the case with either of these two. And I'm giving an owner perspective, or I'd rather say a human companion perspective. Um, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not, if I start talking about some policy, I'm not an attorney. So I want to make it clear, this is what I've experienced as a person who has these cats. The first time I saw an epileptic seizure, it was a shocking thing. A perfectly fine cat all of a sudden is thrashing around on the floor, smashing into things. The other cats gathered around it like they wanted to help it. It was just 30 seconds of chaos. And when it was over, he let out a cry. He was laying on his side, and I thought he was dying. I got him to the veterinarian, and it turned out that it was epilepsy. He went to a neurologist, and the first veterinarian gave a medication that helps pull him out of the seizure. I'm not going to go into the medications and what they are because I feel that's something you need to take up with your veterinarian, but there is one that pulls them right out of the seizure, and there are two that are longer term, and I'm going to tell you, my experience with the longer term medications was not favorable. But I'll get into that in a moment. But at least I knew that this was epilepsy. He went to a neurologist, the first cat, and with the longer term medication in the first cat, I felt like I was turning my cat into a drug addict. It was a barbiturate, and I wondered what would happen, and shortly after we started administering it to him, he started running away from us. He became, instead of a friendly house cat, almost like a feral, because he knew that when we grabbed him, we were going to give him medication. That went about 2 months before he finally saw us coming, and at the point in which he ran away and we couldn't get him, my fear was two things. Is he now going to have the mother of all seizures that ends it for him? And two, is he going to go through some type of withdrawal? Neither of those two things happened, which is a good thing. And for the remaining 12 years, I have done no long-term medication with him. The only medication he gets is the one right after he has a seizure so that he doesn't have an immediate second one. With the second cat, it's more severe. He had his first seizure as a kitten. It was so dramatic that the other cats were afraid. I have literally, he doesn't attack anything. He doesn't attack the other cats. He doesn't attack me. He's just so out of control, thrashing and banging into things and shooting across the room and smashing into things and rolling around and falling downstairs. I mean, it's just incredible, in a scary kind of sense. I have pulled his paw out of his mouth because he's bit right through it. He has been twitching afterwards. He can't get up. And I hit him with the medication. It does nothing. It doesn't. It at least calms him down, so that he's not howling and crying, and because they get scared right afterwards. And then maybe 5-10 minutes later, he has another one. And because he has cluster seizures, the second one has cluster seizures. One time he had so many cluster seizures that I had to get him to a veterinarian's office. um, having a seizure in the carrier, and they sedated him, and that pulled him out of it. And they gave him the longer term medication intravenously, and the duration with both is approximately 2 months before they have another seizure. It can range for longer. I have found the longer the time goes between the seizures, the worse they are when they have it. The one that's the more severe of the two just went through 2 days of cluster seizures, followed by another 2 days of recovery, and he is now finally recovered. What I mean by, you see all that thrashing and banging into things and the muscle twitching, and I mean, that wears them out. And if it continues too much, they can actually have brain swelling. But the fact that he was eating and drinking, and if we brought him the food, and that he seemed to be gradually recovering, and now in the short today, he is recovered. So, because part of me doesn't want to take them to the veterinarian because they can trigger another seizure. Sometimes stress triggers the seizure. You put a cat in a carrier, and that's a little stressful for them, and next thing you know, you're taking him there for a toothache, and the next thing you know, he's having a seizure. So you have to think long and hard before you put the cat in the carrier to take them when you have an epileptic cat. You might even preemptively give him some medication, but it may not work. So they're not going to the doctor unless they have to, unless it's an absolute necessity. So I don't want to talk too much because I don't want to lose everybody here. I want you to be aware of that this does exist. It also happens with dogs. I don't know that much about dogs. I haven't experienced it. I have a friend who has, and we talked about it a little bit. But with cats, this is what it's been in my 2 case studies. I hope you have a good day. I will post a short on Stormy. By the way, the cat's name is Stormy because he was found in the middle of the street after a storm. He doesn't just have epilepsy, he's also deaf. And he was deaf as a kitten. So he has 2 conditions. His first seizure also rendered him with a few neurological differences. Like when he walks, his gait is a little bit awkward, but he still gets around, and he's still very sweet. Both of them are. And you just can't call him. He's deaf. If my housekeeper is vacuuming, he doesn't hear it. Neither one of them would have survived on the outside. It's just would be impossible. Especially if they had a seizure in traffic. They don't know what's going on. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for listening, and be safe and be well.